Okay, let's get down to business. Just to let y'all know, this is going to be a long one. So stop acting like you can't watch long videos and just do this in little small portions. How about that? Because it's not about to be no part 1, part 2. This is going to be the first, last thing about this. Okay? Happy Juneteenth. Yeah, let's talk about what this video is going to be about today. How white is Resident Evil? First, I want to talk about white isn't bad. And let's not get into replacing it with something else, making it a bad thing. White supremacy is constantly at play, discouraging non-white progression. Things like making Juneteenth a holiday for everyone when everyone wasn't affected isn't a step in the right direction, just to let you guys know before you guys think you're happy and, oh, well, look what America's doing. Like, stop. Honestly, really stop. We're not buying it. We are not. But let's talk about this, right? From Mortal Kombat making Melina black to Anne Boleyn being black for some reason. The Mortal Kombat thing I was fine with. Melina can be black, Katana can be black, because guess what? They're Edenian. So Edenians are going to be what? Can they be something else other than Anglo-Saxon of the Caucasus Mountain? Kano already Anglo-Saxon of the Caucasus Mountain. Johnny Cage is Anglo-Saxon. Sonya is Anglo-Saxon. If they're not going to be black, they better be Asian, is what I'm saying. Something else, not Anglo-Saxon. It is a fictitious place. Can we have no escapism? Is there no such thing as escapism for black people or ethnic people? Why do we either have to be animals or colored up like Gamora? And I'll get to that later. Not that in particular, but you'll know when we talk about it. So let's just say the main characters of Resident Evil are obviously looking pasty. Chris Redfield, if y'all ever give him a proper model or face design, so he might as well be black at this point. Like, y'all don't know what he looks like. He might as well be black, honestly. We wouldn't know the difference because he doesn't have a consistent model. Claire is a redhead sometimes. Sometimes she's a brunette, light brunette, like she singed her hair off, kind of looking strange. Jill is the most consistent model from RE5 to Revelations. RE Remake isn't that bad, but honestly, how do you go from having a kind of big nose and big eyes to small eyes and a very thin nose? That's strange. Even Jill had some form of difference that's not just the average Anglo-Saxon, and y'all changed it in the remake. So that's interesting. Leon Scott Kennedy, not Salvador Kennedy, Leon Scott Kennedy, White Knight, yep. Can't be messed with unless you count Babyface, because y'all really gave him a double bald chin for some reason when he never had that. He, in fact, had a singular bald chin, and y'all kind of shaped it into like the crimson chin for some reason. But whatever. Rebecca is confirmed Asian, ironically, despite her model in Resident Evil 0 being quite Anglo. And I'm not talking about that crap that looked bad. I'm talking about the remastered. If yes, you look at her, you can't tell me that she's Asian. But her being Asian is 100% fine. That is a safe alteration. If you can get away with taking away from the infinite amounts of whiteness, that's fine. For anyone to say, oh my goodness, my representation's being destroyed, why don't we just start making black characters white characters? Stupid. You are an idiot. Just to let you know you're dum-dums. Because there are billions of Anglo-Saxons of the Caucasus Mountains everywhere. You pick up a book and there it is. That's an issue because America in the world is pretty big. And I think it's interesting that when we see Asian people, when we consider Asian, we don't think of Laos. People from India, Indians, real Indians, not Native Americans that people say are Indians. We don't think of Thailand. We don't think of the Philippines. We don't think of anybody else but Chinese or Japanese or Korean. That's it. That's all y'all think. And then you think that all those people are homogenous and you think they're only white as the driven snow, despite the fact that colonization occurred. And that's why people have that sentiment, trying to be as light as possible because they know that things are easier. No one would want to not be themselves if not for trials and tribulations. And if you can't understand that, then don't weigh in on this conversation. But I digress. This change they're doing with Rebecca, this is a very safe change. That will get a bit of backlash, of course, from racists and losers and scrubs who really don't care about Rebecca being Asian because they didn't really care about her anyway. Literally, she's just in like 2 games. And she's a wimp and a loser. I'm replaying Resident Evil 0 after all these years.
Find the gameplay under the gameplay playlist.
And she literally gets breathed on and she dies. She's died about 6 times. So pretty sure her life wasn't hinging on her being Anglo. But nothing like a black Albert Wesker, who, by the way, isn't racist. Albert Wesker's not racist. He is a eugenist in the way of inject this Ouroboros, a fictitious virus, and whatever happens, happens. If you notice, everybody's getting the smoke. If you notice, Excella, who's Anglo, got the smoke. Everyone got the smoke. If you can't handle the virus, he doesn't like you. So
Albert Wesker talks down to a real eugenist, Alexia Ashford. When she dies, he's like, pathetic. She freaking literally was into inbreeding. So you can't get any more eugenist than that. How does that make him racist? Y'all just want someone who's not real to be racist so bad. But I digress from that. Billy Cohen, let's talk about Billy Cohen. His last name is Dutch, so they had no intention of making him mixed or ethnic at all. Though him being Hispanic or black would have many negative implications due to his backstory. Despite his insignificance to the plot of the entire Resident Evil story, he is still not a safe character to experiment with, unfortunately. But I like Billy. He could take a pounding in that game. He really can. Literally, he got knocked the crap out of by that scorpion twice, and he was still on fine. He was still on green. So maybe he's got some black in him. He's real tall. But let's talk about Carlos. Carlos was made darker in the remake with more ethnically appropriate hair. That's good. I still feel like the voice should have been someone who looked like Carlos to give a job to, someone who isn't Anglo-Saxon or white passing, because that's the entire cast. Stop being mad about diversity because you don't like diversity. Like literally, turn on your TV. There's 0 black people and ethnic people behind the scenes. Or 1. If there's 10 people in charge of assignment and only one of them is a woman and the other one is ethnic, not even representation for everyone, just ethnic. They don't have to be black. They don't have to be Asian. They could be Hispanic. They could be half Hispanic. That's still not going to get things done. If you think ethnic people getting the job, not just because they're ethnic, of course, obviously, that's not what we're saying. And if you think that, you're stupid and you're dum-dums and you don't need to be having this conversation. You are out of your depth. It's people who applied for the job and got the job, not the people who looked at them and like, we're trying to make this stuff crazy racist. We don't need this black person on here telling us how bad it is. Off topic, good times. Dude that was the father kept talking to the writers because they were all white, no Asian, no Hispanic, all white. Hey, stop doing this because this isn't how black people talk. This isn't how black people do things. They said, shut up. We're going to kill you off. Got killed off. Got fired, told never to come back on set. That's the problem we have. Still happening. Good Times was a very long time ago. Not even that very long time. But it still was a problem. When we're behind the scenes, there's still issues. We get fired because we want our representation to be accurate. What's the deal with that, But with Carlos, back to Carlos. He is never seen again, ironically, like all other non-white and non-light characters, which brings me to my favorite character of all time, Sheva. However, her voice is very British sounding. She couldn't sound like any of the locals for some reason. I wonder why. You can add all these things together. Don't call these nitpicks. Call these things, put it on the shelf. The shelf is going to break eventually. I put a little can on there, okay? There's another can. Here's another can. It's just More cans of crap. The shelf's gonna break, but why do you want it to break? Why does the shelf have to break in order for you guys to understand that there's too many cans? Another thing, all those people who are like, oh my goodness, I'm glad that they made Sheva darker. Are you serious? Have you even played the game? She is brown paper bag, brown egg, lighter than a brown box. She is lighter than a brown box. They could have made her darker. They made the enemies darker. That's real interesting. They made the dude with the chainsaw dark as night. But they couldn't have Sheva that dark. Anyone who thinks Sheva is dark at all has never seen or experienced being around any other skin tone not paste. Sheva is not only coded to be African, born abroad, she's never seen again after 5. She wasn't even brought back for 6 for the hoorah, the hoorah that y'all were doing. Y'all brought Anglo-Saxons to the party. Interesting. Why are you making it seem like there's nothing but white people? Why was Pierce there? Why did Pierce need to be there? I don't care about Pierce. I don't. He was a throwaway character. You could have made Pierce any color and you chose white. Helen, or whatever her name is, Anglo-Saxon. Jake Mueller, Wesker could have had kids with whoever. I still think Jake Mueller is a test tube baby with Wesker's DNA. I don't think he slept with a woman. I honestly don't. I don't see it. Don't tell me he did. He didn't. That thing with Rebecca putting that in there, that was the people who made the game who did that. It wasn't to give backstory to Albert Wesker's sexuality. It was the people who made Resident Evil put that in there so people would find it and laugh. It's a joke. Even though it's kind of not funny because Rebecca was like 18 and that's questionable. But everyone's opinion about Sheva, about her character, comes from how the AI moved independently in a co-op game. Stupid, honestly, because you didn't care about what she did in the actual game, and also you didn't even consider what weapons she had access to. You were just saying, oh, she's stupid because the AI moves independently in a co-op game. You should be playing not by yourself. If you're playing by yourself, why are you so lonely? Why couldn't you just play on Xbox Live? Why couldn't you play with literally your little brother or something? Why didn't you play Sheva? Chris does the same thing. His AI does the same thing Sheva's does, except she's smaller and she's less of a target to hit. So that actually makes it better, because when you go over her head, she's not going to get got. But Chris is huge. He thick, boy. But you're complaining about Sheva's character. Her character, you don't want to see her again because the AI's dumb. Get out of here. Like I said, she never came back. Not in Revelations 1, not in Revelations 2, not 6 through 8. Because you decided to have yet another white person come into the thing. Ethan Winters and his white wife. And they've got a white kid now. Let's discuss minor characters who are ethnic. Number 1, Marvin. Dead. Number 2, Black Cop in Resident Evil 7. His only purpose was to die. I don't even think he has a name. He's not even a boss fight. He literally, the black cop guy that comes in and Ethan's like, help me, give me your gun. He's like, I don't know. I'm just here to be black. I'm just here to be black and put this in your eye. I'm just here to die, though. I'm just here to die and be black. And then he does. He doesn't even become, we see his head morphing, but he dies. He crystallizes. So it makes it seem like he's a little different and he might become a boss. What happened to those bosses that we didn't have to fight? In Resident Evil Code Veronica, there were 2 bosses that I never even put a single bullet in. The spider and the albinoid. And how come this black cop guy couldn't have been a boss? Why was his only purpose to be black and die on screen? Stop doing that. Honestly, like, when you only have one black person, only one ethnic person, one Asian person, like, when you do certain things to that one person, it looks bad because there's nothing but Anglo-Saxons. You kill off an Anglo-Saxon, you make an Anglo-Saxon a prostitute. Guess what? There's another Anglo-Saxon that's the hero. There's another Anglo-Saxon that's not a prostitute. There's another Anglo-Saxon that's literally every other thing under the sun. You see the dilemma I have? You see the problem? Now, I found inspiration to make this video when I constantly heard the reasons why Albert Wesker shouldn't be black. Though I agree Albert Wesker should not be black, I lost all of my brain cells hearing someone claiming two things. I don't know his name, but he claimed 2 things. 1, he is a Resident Evil fan. And 2, he is Hispanic. After hearing the "I'm a minority and I'm not offended" argument in response to diversity, if I recall, he said if he wanted representation, he would go somewhere else or make his own game. Are you serious? You joking? White people are at these Netflix meetings making the decisions to greenlight things. All these white and light-skinned shows were created by them. We have nowhere else to go but these Anglo-Saxons who think Kevin Hart is funny, Tyler Perry is deep, and all the problematic people who have skin tone are still in power, are still at the top. The executives decide who gets representation and when. When they decided on this pandering show about Wesker teens, it was the Anglo-Saxons who said so. It was not us. Despite that, dude's lack of thought to his words, which resemble sentiments told to non-Anglo people to all but leave Earth, he couldn't possibly know the bare minimum about Resident Evil. If he insists he's Hispanic, I have no proof because I don't know what he looks like. I have no proof and I have no DNA, anything. You can look a certain way and be like, well, I'm 1,000,000,000% Hispanic, but you Anglo-Saxon looking. They like to do that. Just like when they were giving out land for being Native American and all these white people talk about, yeah, I'm 2% Cherokee, and took people's money. Happened. History for you. It happened a lot. But if he insists he's Hispanic with no representation, he knows nothing about Resident Evil. In fact, there are more of a variety of Hispanic people in canon than I even believe Asian people are. And this was created by an Asian man. But like I said, how much do you want to bet he even wanted to put more people who are ethnic in his game, and they were like, nope, Claire can't be black. Claire can't be Asian. Chris can't be Asian. What? How dare you? You're about to lose this gig, dude. They take advantage of people who want to be big, who want to not even be big, not even want fame and glory, just want to get their stuff out there. They censor it so much to where I'll get to the censoring. But let's talk about this dude claiming he's Hispanic and there's no representation in Resident Evil. He just wanted to make a point and say that Wesker didn't need to be black, but this literally makes no sense. Almost all of these Hispanic people died in canon, of course. But if he knew about Rodrigo Juan Reval, who's the darkest Hispanic person in canon, Luis Serra in Resident Evil 4, who dies too, Enrico Marini kind of sounds like his Hispanic Italian, though he's considered Caucasian, of course. Of course, if you go to his little thing in the wiki, he's considered Caucasian because everyone with light skin is considered Caucasian. But I almost assumed he was Latin American white passing. Regardless, everyone who's in Resident Evil is Anglo until proven ethnic. Most of the time. Carlos, another Hispanic character, like I said earlier, he's at least playable and wasn't even thought of until the remake, though, honestly. Now we have these annoying Jill and Carlos shippers, which I hate. Like, literally, Jill is Chris's bae. Like, that's what it is. That's what it is. Chris and Jill are together. You are not going to be like hanging around each other and just, whoa, sister. She's like a sister to me. You've got a sister. You need to go out there and do something. And if you're not going to do it with Jill, then you're not going to do it with anyone. I'm sorry, Chris. That's just how your life is going to be. Let's get to the next topic, the censoring that I was telling you about. Why is Gamora? This has nothing to do with Gamora at the moment, but that quote is funny to me. And I'm about to start asking a lot of why is. So that's the reason why this section is called Why is Gamora? But basically, if we establish that Capcom made very deliberate decisions to make at least one character per title non-Anglo, giving them specifically ethnic last names or specific accents and or skin tones, unlike the main cast, why then were other characters added to the roster as white? Like I said, Pierce from Resident Evil 6 did not have to be Anglo. He didn't. He could have been Hispanic. He dies? Yeah, he dies. A lot of people die in Resident Evil. This is a zombie game. This is a post-apocalyptic game. People are going to die. Carlos is alive. He's one of the only Hispanic people alive. And I don't think anyone else is alive that's Hispanic. I think Carlos is the only one. Sheva is the only black one that survives. Playable characters. And now we have two light Asians, Ada Wong and Rebecca Chambers, because we ain't got no Laotians. We ain't got no Asian people who are dark skinned. None. Just saying. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. I would love to add more to the roster. I'd love to. And if they're alive. If we are going to pretend racism died when Obama became president in 2009, months prior to his election, Resident Evil 5 came out. And being set in Africa, you'd think there would have been a lot more dark-skinned characters. Before I dive into this, let me address the "but Africa isn't homogenous" argument, okay? For having all these pasties in Africa, the same argument is always made about American cinema and shows, but still, Anglo-Saxon, white, and light actors heavily outweigh the darker skinned ones or ethnically different Asian Hispanic. So everywhere eventually seems whiter than they really are. Stop doing this. Stop doing this. It's strange. Okay? It's strange. So back to Resident Evil 5. How many dark-skinned Africans or anyone do we see that matter to the plot and game? Not just the enemy models. Let's start, right? Josh Stone. I will argue how light they made Sheva was to add sex appeal for the male audience that they were trying to pander to. Josh is darker than Sheva, always, because men are always allowed to exist in dark skin because it's seen as a positive to them. Dark skin is considered masculine. So when black women are dark skinned, these Anglo-Saxons and these racists associate that dark skin with masculinity. But Sheva is allowed to have an accent, not from Africa. It actually sounds like from England, honestly. From England. It sounds like from England. Let's go. Come on. Come on, let's go. Come on. If you're so desperate to have Sheva on this list, then let's put her on the list, okay? 2. In a game that is set in Africa, there are only 2 black people that matter in the story. And Josh isn't even playable, I don't think, in the main stories. He's in Mercenaries, but they just put the kitchen sink in Mercenaries. So the main character is Chris Redfield, Anglo, of course. Not going to take that away from him. He can be Anglo. He has a partner, Jill, also Anglo. We know her. She doesn't have to change nothing. In the start of the game, you see tons of locals, all varying in color. Then we meet this Anglo-looking dude with the scarf over his head who gives you your weapons. Why is he not darker? Because he dies? Literally opened up the game, started the game with a darker-skinned man, deep-throating Ouroboros. So that's not a reason to not have someone black because they die. Because like I said, the more ethnic people you have, the more leeway you have of what happens to who. Of course, there are implications that you have to take into account. And if you're not ready to take those things into account, don't be an executive producer. Don't have anything connected to these things because you don't care about other people. You only care about yourself. So that dude who gave us the weapons gets killed. Like I said, don't be afraid of killing off ethnic people as long as among the many Anglo-Saxons or lighter or non-ethnic characters, they aren't always the first or only to die or suffer greatly. This seems like a pretty easy concept. I don't understand why this is so hard. Here's a side note. Bridgerton, the queen, she's queen, right? Light skin, light paper bag test. She passed it. She literally passed that paper bag test with flying colors. She's a queen with a white dude, and supposedly we were divided by color. Y'all had to say that, didn't you? We couldn't have had escapism. We had to have racism in Bridgerton too. Interesting. So there was no blind casting. There was no color blind casting. There was, y'all specifically did this purposefully. So with that in mind, let's look at the queen. So the queen has to suffer because her husband's going through whatever. I don't know what he's going through. Maybe Alzheimer's. Maybe, I have no idea. But she does not have sex. At least with him. And if she didn't, she'd be looked as a harlot, right? Cool. So we get to the barefoot and pregnant girl who's light-skinned again. Who's light-skinned. paper bag test passed. She can't even be with the guy she likes because somebody else likes him. She can't even have what she wants. She can't even, like, everyone it works against this black girl like she's the main character. But she's not. Ironically, you give her all these trials and tribulations, but she's not a main character. She's not. Dove Girl's a main character. Light-skinned black dude is a main character. Who is a womanizer and is horrible. Like, literally, honestly, none of the white people, the Anglo-Saxons you put in Bridgerton, suffer as much as them. No. And then you're like, oh, well, we've got Asian people in the back. Shut up. Shut up. Asian people are not of the main cast. It's not diversity just because you have them in the background. So, I digress. Aside from the background models, let's talk about the actual characters who we're supposed to believe would be in this story that is set in Africa. A minor character I would like to discuss is that white girl who was snatched and turned. She serves as a tutorial enemy. Why is she Anglo? Why couldn't she have been black? Because she dies? Like I said, we're going through this thing. We're going through the same thing. Like, all these white people died. All these Anglo-Saxons died, right? Does that matter? Are y'all upset at that? No, you're not. Of course not. I'm going to say this maybe a few more times before I'm just bored of it. You can have black people die, but when their only purpose is to come into the scene and die without even being a boss or anything like that black cop in Resident Evil 7, you're literally just being stupid. Literally. Why was this girl Anglo? Why did she need to be blonde and white? Why? Why did she need to be? Why couldn't she have been a local? She served no purpose. They weren't looking for her. They weren't saying, we need to look for this girl, and there was no description. Her description, what she looked like, had nothing to do with what she brought to the game. You just needed more Anglo-Saxons in Africa. She didn't even have kinky hair. She could have been light-skinned. She had no kinky hair to her name. They made every possible attempt to Anglo-anize people in this story. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't have done it. Capcom may be idiotic, and they don't care about their fans, and they may be thieves, but they're not dumb. They could have made that woman black. But that doesn't appeal to the pathos, does it? If that woman was black, oh, why do we care that she's deep-throating Ouroboros? Why do we care? Why do I need to save her? They didn't save her. Guess what? They shot her in the face. And then something came out and it was like, it was a tutorial enemy. It didn't matter if she were black, but you made her white because it did matter. So aside from the irony of covering the face of most of the bigger enemies who were dark-skinned, far greater atrocities were committed in Resident Evil 5. Let's discuss Excella the Simp Gioni. She is canonically Caucasian Italian. Guess what her title is? She's a regional director of Tricell Inc. in Africa. Tricell Inc. Africa. Why is she white? Why is she Italian? Why she gotta be Italian? What region did she live in to get here? A Caucasian Italian, a regional director position in Africa? All right. Let's read what it says on the Googles. Regional Director Careers. A regional director is a mid-ranked manager responsible for overseeing business operations in a specific geographical area. Regional directors transmit the mission of the company to employees and set goals to achieve by the deadline they set. So far in here, it doesn't say nothing about having to be Italian or Caucasian. Department heads and team leaders report the regional director on the progress of implementing business strategies. Anything in there? Maybe I just can't read. I don't see anything in here about being Anglo-Saxon. Coaching and improving subordinate employees is also the responsibility of a regional director. I like Excella. What the freak she know about Africa? So I don't understand the reason why they made her white. I just don't understand the reason. Like, what are you trying to say? Are you saying that, like, what was trying to be said? Were you saying that ethnic people couldn't possibly be regional directors? What was the point of her not being a local? What was the point? She dies anyway, and she becomes a boss at least. At the very least, she becomes a boss. Is that why she was white? Because she was essential to the story? Her becoming black may have implications, but like I said, those implications can easily be dealt with if you take them into consideration. If you don't want to, don't take the job. Don't take the job. You're not ready. You're not ready. You don't have the qualities it takes. You do not have the qualifications it takes to make a movie, a video game, a series, a documentary, nothing. You have zero. If you can't do that, don't do it. Why was Excella white? Again, the implications of making a character black can be considered, but not deterred, especially if making a character white in the story where it makes no sense. It hurts the believability, but racists don't see that. When they see Anglo-Saxons take roles, they're fine. Cleopatra, she could have been more Anglo than not Anglo, but guess what? She still had it in her blood, so there was no reason for her nose not to be elongated like it is in depictions. There was no reason for her not to have a tall hairline. There was no reason for not, but y'all just wanted just some random pasty Anglo-Saxon to play Cleopatra. I'm not getting into a debate about what Cleopatra looked like. That girl who played Cleopatra looked nothing like what real Cleopatra looked like, if you want to get down to the nidbits of that. But when anybody who has any tone to their skin plays any role, if they're not white passing or the role wasn't catered to them, there's a get woke, go broke situation that goes on, right? Really? Honestly, you're going to call it woke for people to have jobs. Okay. And then, like I said in my Wesker Kids video, they're not even getting as much money as it's worth because they're getting treated like crap because of it. I'm done with Excella. She shouldn't have, no regional manager of Africa is going to be Italian. That's just, we're in the wrong place. Ma'am, you're in the wrong place. You don't belong here. Let's discuss Irving. And before we get into Irving, don't come at me like, oh, well, regional managers are handpicked. They can be anyone from any place. Shut up. There was no reason for her not to be black. End of story. No reason. We're putting that can on the shelf that's already broken. Let's discuss Irving. His name is Ricardo Irving. But he's identified on his wiki as Caucasian American rather than Latin or Hispanic, because he's clearly meant to be seen as Anglo. He's far more minor than Excella, but he's at least a boss fight. Like I said, that cop literally he gets handed a shovel in the back of his head and freaking dies for no reason. It doesn't even become a molded boss that is like half as hard as Rachel was to defeat in Revelations 1. It's disgusting. Irving is only considered a character because he has a boss fight, honestly. He's somewhat essential to the story. He actually seems to be like a throwaway character. He was thrown in it haphazardly, and I'm afraid if he had been black or even Hispanic, many people would have found more disdain for his character. Even though he's insignificant, there was really no reason for him to be Anglo in Africa. Yeah, whatever. Someone could say, well, he's working for there's a lot of excuses flying out your mouth for the reason why so many Anglo-Saxons are beatboxing up in Africa. Spewing words when you spit them, honestly, about these Anglo-Saxons trailing and treading on African soil. You have a lot of excuses. And I'm here for none of them, actually. If you really want to talk about it, we can talk about it in the comments. I would love to have a conversation about this because I just want to hear... I want to hear someone talk about how Irving's not from there. So they shouldn't have had Irving in there in the first place. I'm saying going back in time, making this game the crap over. Irving should not have been in here at all. He's disgusting. And his name's Ricardo Irving, but you insisted on him being coded white. You insisted on that. It's like you guys don't want diversity. It's as if you want to make sure that no matter where we are, Spain, Africa, India, you want to make sure there are at least more white people than any ethnic group combined. Every ethnic person we see that matters in this game matters not compared to all the Anglo-Saxons that y'all just had to have in here. Excella didn't have to be Anglo. Irving didn't have to be Anglo. But it matters to them, so they did it. Literally, at this point, Irving being white and Irving the way he is, everyone's indifferent. No one says, oh my goodness, Irving's my favorite character. If you change his ethnicity, I'd just die. Not like Wesker. Not like Chris, Jill, or Claire. Literally, Irving was an insignificant character, but you decided he needed to be Anglo-Saxon. He needed to. What's the point of going to different places if everyone's just going to look like they're from England? Speaking of Spain, let's discuss Resident Evil 4, right? We're in post-colonialism Spain at this point, but everyone and everything around Leon looks like it's pre-colonialism. The ads, the bosses, the locals, not a tinge of brown skin in sight. And don't get me started on why Ada is in a silk dress and not military gear or just any gear at all. Y'all know why they put her in that silk dress, that Asian silk dress. You know why. It's because she's Asian. Bottom line. Because of the story, because of the journey it's taken me on, because of the cool things that go on, because of the cool concepts that they've created that has sparked the generation of zombie flicks and whatnot. I love Resident Evil. I can understand the flaws and point them out and have conversations about them. And I promote any conversation we can have about this culturally, because there's stuff in pop culture that seems to be not made for us. We can enjoy those things and still acknowledge that there are problems. Resident Evil is mostly white. Some Asian, light skin Asians. No Laotians, no Thai, no nothing. Though they don't get representation. They have to look at Ada and say, that's me. That's what y'all think every Asian person looks like. Some Hispanic people, very few black people, and almost no dark-skinned characters at all that matter in the canon. Half as much as Sherry Birkenberry Burton or even Ashley Graham. They don't matter. I didn't talk about Outbreak because who cares about Outbreak? Like, I know a lot of Resident Evil fans do. I personally do not. I feel like Outbreak is more of a side story than Resident Evil Code Veronica is, because yes, it connects very closely to the rest of the installments after. Yes, it does. If you don't believe me, play the games. This is my reality. My reality is when I cosplay as Jill Valentine, I have to hear how it's inaccurate because of my skin. When people like me take roles that have always been Anglo, we have to hear racial slurs. My opinion on certain roles have already been fleshed out in previous videos. I'm not going to play it back. But if there is a successful reference point with specific descriptions having to do with geography, if it doesn't affect the story or plot, why not change out these Anglos who have been represented for lifetimes over? Why not make Carlos or Sheva darker? Or how about, guess what? They can stay the way they are and just freaking exist again. Carlos never is seen again after Resident Evil 3. Never seen again. Never talked about, unless I missed some little small paper that we're supposed to get, right? Claire, Leon, Jill, like all of them get to exist on paper in high stereo, literally in our face. But we just have to look for little pieces of memories of what Sheva and Carlos brought to the table. Thank you. Thank you. If the project is a period piece, there still is no reason to exclude different ethnicities. We have always existed. Hi, I'm black. I've always existed. Like, blackness isn't a curse that came about when all the white people were happy. Representation isn't just visuals. It's in the writing room. It's in the casting calls. It's behind the camera. That crap they're pulling with Anne Boleyn is nothing we asked for. No black person pitched Albert. Hey, wow. Since this is so successful, let's make Albert Wesker black. Wow. Yes. No. Despite that's your horrible racist nightmare, we didn't even ask for this. But I would love to see something about him being gay, because that's another thing y'all kind of just, you didn't talk about his sexuality at all. And then he's got a son for some reason. And he can be gay and have a son. But I just feel like it takes away from everyone's hypothesis of him being gay. Like they had to put, let's put a son in there so we don't have to talk about gay people. Are you serious? Are you serious? That's a change in canon that does not change who Albert Wesker is and what he has to get accomplished. That garbage y'all pulled with Bridgerton, In the Heights, excluding dark-skinned people, is the reason why we can't progress. Years and years of being told my representation should be paper bag tested actresses and dark-skinned actors. Sometimes, maybe, and they die, or they're treated like crap, or they don't get a decent enough script, and everyone else seems to have meatier scripts, but they don't. So what if someone wants to make a movie or show with true colorblind casting? Because it only seems to be colorblind when everyone is white. And when more than two people are black or ethnic at all, it's because of an agenda. Literally, if you feel that way, I suggest you go to Elon Musk's house and say, can I please get aboard your ship to go to Mars? Because you do not belong on Earth with that. Don't watch it. But definitely don't be one of those, I don't need representation ethnic people, or make your own people. Because the people calling the shots are the people allowing colorism to stay. What you think this is? Allowing what little representation we get to be stereotypes, racist archetypes, or stuff we never asked for, like Black Anne Boleyn or Black Albert Wesker, literally is just super annoying. And I'm just going to leave you with,
that man is a real Black Wesker. Netflix giving stuff we never ever asked for. When did Wesker have about 6 kids? With disbelief, I delve and skin deeper. Guess what? Netflix Raccoon City busted. All the secrets went up with the nuke bits. Smoke in the air like freaking gone. If you know this song, you can sing along. Who on earth in the world just wrote this? The plot seems to lack a lot of focus. The mind, the common, and the sense. To be anything is mass.